From the goddess born out of another's anger to the woman who defied physical stereotypes and exuded power. From the goddess who had to marry 5 men to the woman who chose whom she would love. From the goddess who was abandoned by another man to the transsexual who chose his identity, the stories I grew up with me. The world we perceive as it is today is a result of a synthesis of stories, both yours and others. A network of interconnections, quite like roots that bring into the being everything it requires, quietly lying beneath, away from plain sight, but the unmistakable base upon which the tree, reality, is built. Stories are diverse, vivid, manifold. Stories can be complex. Its possibility for multiple perceptions, like the different interlinked pathways of a big labyrinth, are part of its very existence. But sometimes stories can be really simple. It's like a single thread of cloth, easy at first sight, but with the unmistakable capacity to disentangle itself 1,000,000 times. The philosophies we imbibe from stories are different. Stories are manifestations of experiences, and experiences are immeasurable. Our stories vary, and mine is a really simple one. It's a story of stories and conversations. Now, a very personal decision I took months back opened me up to a very curious characteristic feature of the society. You see, the society works with a stencil in hand. A stencil is, I quote, a thin sheet of cardboard, metal or plastic, with different shapes cut out of it, and when placed on another surface and poured ink into, helps reproduce the same shape on the surface below. Now, the momentous decision I took was to cut my hip-long hair really short. That, coupled with a pair of new glasses, managed to traumatize a couple of my distant relatives, the people of the Indian family who actually care about you the most. I was bombarded with looks and an array of quite audible sounds. In their eyes, I saw disgust, anxiety, but most importantly, the fear of a broken norm. Now, wading through, are you trying to be like a boy? Or what have you done to your long hair? I reached the question that disturbed me and interested me the most. Now, this question was a compartmentalization and a comparison at the same time. I was asked by people belonging to different age groups, genders, and backgrounds. Now, are you trying to be a feminist? This is conversation 1. I was shocked and surprised. Wait, I am a feminist. Since the day I knew that was what I believed and was called, I have been. But I failed to understand how the way I looked helped them determine this. I was shocked because, you see, I was a feminist even when I had long hair. Now, the flappers of the 1920s changed their physical appearances radically. Extremely short hair, flamboyant colors, replacement of corsets with lingerie, to fight against the airtight Victorian model of morals of the society. And that was relevant to the condition then. But in the 21st century, I found myself having to furiously narrate how my hairstyle was irrelevant as far as my feminism was concerned. You should replace your glasses with lens. Because with glasses, you look like every other feminist. My cousin told me, and I was baffled at how my external appearance was easily helping them to categorize me into something. Now, the stencil takes all life, all phenomena, and their entire existences, and liquefies them and pours it into its different shapes. And all spillages are painstakingly removed. And I, with my short hair and glasses, was supposed to fit into the stencil of the feminist of the 21st century, because no one is to be an exception to the stencil. Now, there is only one stencil. There will always be only one stencil. And this is large enough and wide enough to decimate all differences. Anything left undefined by the society is dangerous to its power. So definition started to rule the game, and because definition helped in drawing a curtain against anything that refused to be defined. Definition made it easier to make us look like mass-produced goods. Identical, mechanical, lifeless. I grew up listening to stories all my life. I still do. The stories of the ancient epics were so fascinating, So colorful. The characters coming to life in front of me, the shadows growing in shapes and sizes in the dark bedroom when my mother used different intonations for theatrical effect. The gods and goddess fascinated me. The wars disturbed and angered me like it still does. And the richness blew my mind. But after some time, I noticed that stories grow up too. In this world of social, racial, and sexual discrimination, in this world of political power play, the epics were being more relevant to me than it ever had. It opened up like a new person. It was more real than the real presented to me. Now, these characters weren't shallow. These characters refused to be defined. I wondered aloud at the wife of the story who had to prove her chastity, but the husband who didn't have to. The villain of the story who was above all caste discriminations, but the hero who was still confined and controlled by it. The powerful female characters who refused to be covered by flimsy covers of socially created fake masculinity thrown over them. Stories are much more than powerful. Stories help you break definitions. And if you let them, stories will teach you to ask questions. Stories will show you the fallacy of trying to fit this world forcefully into shapes, sizes, and categories we don't quite understand. Stories tell you that the fiction presented to you is ultimately drawn from our own realities. Literature classes are worlds of stories. We see the same world through different eyes in there. And this is conversation 2. Quote, I believe every man accused of rape, where it is not the woman's fault, has to be hanged, unquote. The whole class froze into silence and we argued with the teacher for 1 whole hour. An 8-year-old child, an 80-year-old woman, a poor refugee man. Women in salwars, women in burqas, kids swaddled in clothes, man in tattered shorts. In temples, in moving buses and trains. And here we are, still arguing with a teacher who was ready to fight for the cause if it was not the fault of the person at the receiving end. If what you did, wore and said did nothing to incite the urges of the man standing on the other side. The only male student in my class winced, but did not say anything as conversation 3 happened. Quote, all men ultimately see women as mere sexual objects only, unquote. 14 women argued with the teacher that day for another hour. The teacher was shell-shocked. Wait, these are 14 women. They say they are feminists. But aren't feminists supposed to hate men? Again, I was asked not to use a word as strong as rape, leading to conversation 4. Quote, let's not use a word as strong as that in class, shall we? Unquote, said the calm, smiling voice of the professor as he easily went back into teaching post-structuralism, leaving me hanging dangerously in a world of conflicts. The National Crime Records Bureau in 2016 calculated 38,947 rapes that year. That's 4 women an hour. 2.4 to 3.6 million children pushed into the vicious cycle of sexual slavery every year, having to go through tortures nobody must have to go through ever in their lives. And here we were, still being uncomfortable by the reality that slaps us in the face every day. The conversations I was having was taking me to a world characterized by shame, always imposed on the person at the receiving end. Shameful it is to be raped, to be passed lewd comments on, to be harassed at your workplace, to be ridiculed for the way your body is. Shameful it is to talk about sex. Shameful it is to point out the sexism in your friend's joke. And in the 21st century, received with a scrunched up nose and a wrinkled forehead, shameful it is to be a feminist. Shame has more power than we give it credit. Shame has the ability to reduce us to the dregs of the society's scorn. If the society rules and is ruled by the stencil, then shame controls that stencil. Shame ensures that you are aware of its presence. Shame keeps you intimidated so that you automatically assume it is safer to fit into what has already been made for you rather than risk being shamed. Shame has different dimensions. If it's not what you say, It's the way you look. I have never been body shamed in my entire life. Not even once. Never loathed for the way I look. Never known what is to not like myself because I look a certain way. This is conversation 5. Quote, sometimes I feel so bad about myself and it affects the way I see myself. On the outside, it's just physical appearance after all, but it affects people more than I can tell you. Unquote. That was my best friend who confessed to me she was made to feel worthless and invisible at a point in her life where she was made so conscious about her weight that she's afraid if she would find self-love. Statistics say that 94% of women and 64% of men, also in their teenage, suffer from body shaming more than once in their lives, pushing them to eating disorders like anorexia nervosa, bulimia nervosa, killing their health and their confidence. There's an issue with some problems. We don't understand them unless we go through it ourselves. Shaming is one such. But here, my lack of empathy would equate to lying an opaque sheet over the experiences of everybody who isn't me. And by doing that, I'm choosing to forget something really, really important. I'm not invincible to any of this. Our advertisements do a really good job at reinforcing this. And it's not just the size of your body. Fairer skin equates to greater confidence, fitter body equates to greater public space, and in this world, my glasses determine my feminism. So every time a person reaches over for a fairness cream or chooses to eat an apple over a healthy meal, the stencil gains strength and starts to suffocate the misfit. Gender inequality has been ingrained into our lives since time immemorial. Little girls are taught to play wife, play with kitchen utensils, while little boys are taught to sweat. Little girls can cry their eyes out, but little boys are chastised for crying like a girl. Gender insensitivity has been a theme for jokes since forever. And every time we silently agree to this, we are normalizing that which isn't a norm. So what can be done? Firstly, kill the society's humor sense. The next time you go on Facebook, you see the photo of a dark, plump lady with curly hair with a description that says, tag your lucky friend who would want to marry this beautiful lady, question yourself before you are about to tag someone. The next time you receive the lame WhatsApp joke about the poor husband who has to suffer under the plight of the unbearable wife all the time, question why this is funny. The next time the macho man hero asks the girl to jump into his jeep so that she can be at the receiving end of his drunken loiters at the end of a long, hard day, so that she can cook for him, cry for him, and bear litters of children for him, question the thrill of heroism that you might feel. Question the story that created characters like this, and question the message that films like these silently spread. Also, question the individual who tells you that films are mere entertainment and then goes on to watch art films to talk about the socio-cultural importance of cinema at the same time. If you still think it's okay for rape references and jokes to be made, if you still think it's okay for the policeman to grab his female colleague by his belt, and if you still think that is heroic, question yourself before you question the person who asked you to strangle the human sense by its neck. Secondly, we need to go to conversation 6. Quote, I'm an equalist. I'm a humanist. I can't essentially be a feminist. Unquote. Not one, not two, but so many people have chosen to confidently say this, and I wondered if they don't know that these terms are in fact related to each other. Why is it so hard to understand what feminism is? Why feminism? To change the way the society perceives an individual's strength based on their gender. To make sure that discussions do not limit themselves to discussing gender in two categories. The hypocritical concept of dvaya that is established by the stencil. To make the world a more humane place to live in. Equality and humanity are the ultimate results that feminism seeks to pursue. So the next time you hear someone saying, I'm an equalist, I'm a humanist, I can't essentially be a feminist, remind them that they might just be a feminist. What a disappointment. Do you know why we need to break the stencil? Because we need to go to conversation 7. I was told by my friend a couple of months back, quote, so what is so wrong in being the person at the receiving end? I mean, what is so wrong in being controlled? Unquote. And to everybody who has thought about this silently or aloud, I tell you, because I refuse. I refuse to be defined by the characteristic features assigned to me because of my gender. I refuse to see this world in black and white when the sky can turn blue, orange, pink, black. I refuse to judge the wonderful men around me. I refuse to see the discussion falling from feminism to feminazism, which is just an excuse to mute the real conversation. Most importantly, I refuse to obey the order of the stencil to remain without spilling. Do you know why I'm a feminist? Because I see the stencil breaking dreams, clipping wings, taking lives. I see the stencil seeing the world through differences in terms of gender and similarities in terms of existence. I'm a feminist because I want to break the stencil in two, let the ink flow out, take whatever shape it desires to take. I had hip-long hair. I wore no glasses. I was a feminist then. I have really short hair now. I wear glasses. I'm a feminist now. I might shave my hair. I might grow it out to my knees. I might go blind, or I might end up wearing lens. I'm still going to be a feminist. This is my story, a story of stories and conversations. A simple story of a single thread. Thank you.